Hey guys, this is Jon Rivera from GamingInstincts.com, and welcome to my Let's Play of Resident Evil 1 for the Sega Saturn. As you can see, this is the game that started it all. Maybe not the version that started it all, but definitely the one that brought horror to the forefront during the mid-90s. Very fascinating game. Now, if you guys are wondering, I'm doing a Let's Play of Resident Evil 1, as well as every other Resident Evil title that I personally own, in order for me to get ready and primed for the eventual release of Resident Evil 7 when it launches next year. And it's coming fast. I mean, I'm still apprehensive. I'm anticipating it with with the most fervor. I don't think I've been quite this excited for a game in quite some time. So let's get into it. So here's the game. Now you guys might be wondering why exactly I'm playing this for the Sega Saturn. A couple reasons. This is actually kind of a special edition. They added a new monster type, as it indicates here on the back of the case, and also there we go. Love that Sega Saturn BIOS. Also, this is the version that I grew up playing. I actually was a huge diehard Sega fan back in the Dizzy, and when we finally got a chance to play Resident Evil on the Sega Saturn, we jumped on it. We actually waited for the release of it 1 year later. This release came out in '97. The original for the PlayStation, Vanilla Resident Evil or Biohazard, came out in 1996. So here's another look at that manual art right there. And I'm going to keep this handy just because you never know when you're going to need it. That could very well save my life at some point. Starting application. By the way, the load times in this version are worse, and also you can see the compression of the FMVs are a little chunkier than the PlayStation 1 version. Oh, and here we go. Yeah, let's put that 3M fake blood on there. Resident Evil. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, for me growing up in this game, 1997, I was 9 years old. Way too young to be playing this game, but I would often watch my brother play this game. I remember a specific ad. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty awesome. I love that option screen. Okay. Action dash. Get ready. I'm assuming that's to ready my weapon. Pretty straightforward options. I love the effect that's going on with the background image with the zombie. Now, I will say this. For the Sega Saturn version, they did make the smart move of not having good old derpy Chris Redfield as being the cover image for Resident Evil. They went with the first zombie that you face, whether you play as Chris or Jill. Very smart move, because that first cover, I'll put an image up here so you can see it, but it is... I don't know. It's priceless. It's canon. It's part of the canon. Oh, let's get back to this FMV. Ah! Rest in peace, Scott McAuliffe. Scott McAuliffe was the fellow who played as Chris Redfield in these live motion sequences. He died at some point in the early aughts. So rest in peace, my friend. You're part of the canon. So I hope you guys watched my first part of my road to Resident Evil 7, as it were, when I played through one of the prototypes. There were two prototypes, but I chose to play the earlier prototype, mainly because there are so many differences between it and the final product. I mean, it's pretty astounding. All right, so I have my options between Chris Redfield as well as Jill Valentine. And I'm going with Jill. Great presentation values with this game. I mean, it was incredibly low budget, and there are aspects of it that have not aged well at all. But you can tell from this game that it was an extremely low budget production, and they tried their hardest. I mean, they did their damnedest to make this game everything that it could be. And that's, like, my hat is off to Shinji Mikami and the rest of his team. Now, interesting note about this FMV intro sequence is that it is heavily censored. Instead of these newspaper clippings being shown, the original version of the intro shows the mangled and partially devoured corpses close up of some individuals. So these clippings were just tacked in here to cover that stuff up. I love those cuts. Great cuts.
It was Bravo Team's helicopter. Nobody was in it. But strangely, most of the equipment was still there.
Yo, it's the 90s. Cue Chris.
We soon discovered why.
Oh no, it's Jill first, and then it goes to Chris. Nah. He's like, nah, son. Oh, shit.
Hey! Come here!
Okay, now it cuts here because this is another censored aspect of the intro. Basically, he was supposed to pull the entire hand up into frame in its entirety to reveal that it had been severed. Oh, gosh. We're also missing footage of the dogs getting shot in the face with Joseph Frost's shotgun, blowing their eyes out and stuff, and just blood spraying everywhere. And also the mangled corpse of Joseph, in which, like, his arm had been ripped off and he had, like, a chunk bitten from his neck. Really grisly stuff. I mean, I understand why they censored this intro and some of the other FMV sequences that followed. Interesting fact about this. The intro and the outro. Oh, yeah, just get in on that. Alright, here's another censored aspect of this intro. You see a montage right here, but all the other characters following, they do something, like Jill Valentine, you know, loads her pistol, cocks it, MC Hammer pants and all. Barry Burton, he loves his guns. Great, amazing, mid to late 90s extreme announcer, like, going like this. He's not enough hair gel. But in the uncensored version of that sequence right there, the reason why it's censored and they replaced Chris Redfield's special thing that he does with a montage of footage is because he pulls out a cigarette and lights a cigarette, takes a drag, which was...
Wow, what a mansion!
What a mansion! You can, like, seriously, do not take a shot every time Barry Burton says, "What is this?" You'll be drunk before you know it.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
But Chris is...
Oh.
What is it?
Maybe it's Chris.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I'm trying to keep the atmosphere going.
I'm going with you. Chris is our old partner, you know.
Okay, let me handle this.
What are you going to handle?
Stay alert.
I love the run animations, like the run cycles in this game. Like they all move with purpose. I love that. There are a lot of things that they got right in here. Oh, by the way, the load times are way worse in this version.
A dining room.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. Let's see. Now, I happen to be using the, let's see if I can, I've got a lot of cordage on the floor, so pardon the noise. I'm using a 3D controller for the Sega Saturn right now. Now, I'm going to change this and see if it does anything. So, yeah, there's no analog support for this version of Resident Evil. A real shame. I'm pretty sure by this point, 1997, they had come out with the 3D controller. I could be wrong. I'm not exactly sure when Nights into Dreams launched. So, alright, going back to digital mode. So, okay, let me talk about this intro for a second, because I really wanted you guys to watch it to a certain extent. But, so the intro was heavily censored, and there's also another aspect of the FMV sequences that's censored coming up in just a little bit with Kenneth. But to date,
What is this?
What is it?
Blood. Jill, see if you can find any other clues. I'll be examining this. Hope this is not Chris's blood.
Okay, so the intro was censored. Then, with the release of the director's cut for the PlayStation, they basically on the back of the box, or the jewel case, they said that the sequences were all restored in their uncut glory. They're like, it's like uncensored. But the sequences for the intro and other FMV, like Silicon Graphics CGI sequences that happen later on in the game, are still censored. To date, the only North American release of Resident Evil 1 that is uncensored, and I'm not talking about the GameCube remake or the HD remaster of that remake, I'm talking about regular-ass, Resident-ass Evil. Like, that PC version is the only version that has the uncensored cinematics in it, and it's in full color, too. A picture of beautiful scenery. Alright. Nope. Alright. Sorry about this, guys. I haven't played this game in years, so. Alright, got the knife out. So there's the knife right there. I like her ready animation. Like she's ready to shank somebody. Her head tilts to indicate where she's aiming. And let's equip our gun. Oh my goodness. Sorry, folks. It's been a while. Alright. At some point, we'll run into a room where there will be like a close camera angle, and I can show you essentially the graphics of the Sega Saturn at work. Anytime now. She's just having trouble getting that door open, you know. Here's a close-up. Now, interesting fact about the Sega Saturn version of Resident Evil, aka Biohazard, is that like you can see a little bit of the graphics of the Sega Saturn at work. As you can tell, if you're familiar with the PlayStation 1 version, the polygonal models have been completely redone because of the Sega Saturn's inability to draw triangles. The geometric rendering primitive of the Sega Saturn is the quadrilateral. So everything, if it was every game that was ported to PlayStation had to be redone to basically suit that geometric rendering primitive ideology. Oh shit. So that sequence was redone. There should have been footage of not Forrest, sorry. Kenneth's. Oh, gotta get out of here. There should have been some footage, like a brief, like 2-second clip of Kenneth's head falling, getting dropped onto the ground, and then rolling over to reveal that part of the face, like half of his face, had been partially devoured.
Barry?
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this.
Nice. That should have taken one shot. That's a Colt Python that he's got, so.
What is it?
Take a drink.
Kenneth was killed too. Maybe by this creature.
Really?
Anyway, let's report this to Wesker.
I've got to report this to Wesker. There's something I really love about this game that I kind of hope is replicated to a certain extent in Resident Evil 7, and it's just the fact that
Help me look for
there's
it,
really no
Don't
hand-holding
leave
in
this
this
hall
game.
for the time
I mean,
being.
the game pretty much drops you into this mansion and says, here's this huge mansion. It's got a bunch of mysteries. You need to solve them, and we're not going to give you any indication on how to solve that stuff. Just sort of figure it out on your own. And that's part of what makes this game still scary to this day. See if I can get a little closer on Jill's polygonal model. Yeah, you can tell right here that a lot of the model was reconstructed.
Find anything, Jill?
Nothing. What is this all about? I can't figure it out at all.
Beats me, too.
Now it's Wesker's time to disappear. I don't know what's going on.
Well, it can't be helped. Let's search for him separately. I'll check the dining room again.
Okay, I'll try the door on the opposite side.
This mansion is gigantic. We could get into trouble if we get lost. We should start from the first floor, okay? And Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
So bad. So bad it's good.
Listen, if something happens, let's meet up in this hall. This time I'll be there.
This time I'll be there. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go back because if I remember correctly, it's been years, and I'm not using a walkthrough to play this game. I'm actually I'm playing it as if I just recently bought it and have no idea how to play, so. Ah, the body's gone. No. there are definitely aspects of this game that still, for me, are scary. He's Kenneth from Star's Bravo team. Now he's become a mere shadow of his former self. Famous last words. And there should be another clip. Yep. Will you take the clip? Yes, I will. Yeah, so there's his head, which is never shown in that FMV sequence, mainly because they felt the need to censor it. It's locked from the inside. It's locked from the inside. You have used the lockpick. Now, what I remember the most is the mansion. Everything else I'm kind of hazy on. It's, like I said, it's been years since I've played this. So if you look at this bar with the piano, it looks quite a bit different from the final, or from, not from the final version, because this is the final version. It looks quite a bit different from the prototype that I played. It's a little darker in hue. And that's something that could possibly be attributed to the Sega Saturn's color palette, which happens to be on like the warmer side compared to the PlayStation. PlayStation color palettes, it's like much cooler tones. And with the Saturn, everything has got like a warmer tone to it. A fine grand piano. Yeah, I gotcha. It's Moonlight Sonata. Please, YouTube, don't take me down. I've always wanted to see what her animation looks like without the piano overlay. Just her just dancing. Now, what's interesting is that in Chris's campaign, you need Rebecca Chambers in order to play the piano, because Chris can't do it. So, Jill Valentine's campaign is kind of on the easier side. You have 2 more inventory slots, you're more resilient to damage, and she's a better shot. Which, I mean, to some extent, could be like, oh, of course, the ladies' campaign is the easiest one, because she's a lady. But when you think about it, that's actually kind of a credit to Jill Valentine. She's actually all around more capable of a person than Chris Redfield. Like, looking at Chris, he takes less damage before he dies. Oh gosh, look at that model. And he can't play the piano. He has to pretty much like gallivant all around the mansion to find keys, because he's not a master of lock picking. So, oh wait, let's get that idle animation in there. Sass. Nothing but sass. Look at her like pat that pistol on her thigh. I'm not going to do that because the door is going to come down. Actually, let me do that real quick. I got to show you guys how this game works. So. Yeah, there we go. It's been a while since I've played anything that has to do with character relative movement, aka tank controls. And that's exactly what that is. I mean, tank controls is what you would call back in the day character relative movement. And all that means is, like, character relative movement simply means that the character moves independent of the camera, and the D-pad controls the character the same way, no matter what sort of permutation the camera angle is put in. Or put through, sorry. A dusty-looking grandfather clock. A picture of a woman. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's slowly but surely coming back to me, folks. I appreciate the patience. Also, this is really the only survival horror game I've ever played on the Saturn. Aside from Enemy Zero, but that's a completely first-person experience. A great touch to this game was the whole, like, tactile, like, there's a dynamic sound system where, depending on the surface that you're walking on, your footsteps will, like, yield different, like, slightly different variations on the sound. So, you know, here she's walking on tile, ceramic tile. Now she's walking on a hardwood floor. It's a great touch that not a lot of people really pay attention to, but I mean, that's a huge deal when it comes to, like, the presentation value of a game. It gives it that much more believability. Nice. Keep on missing that door. Now, I'm sure you can tell that I'm avoiding combat right now. And that's because I think the combat in this game is nerve-wracking. Interesting thing about the combat was that there were two aspects of the combat that were changed for the North American release of Resident Evil. In Biohazard, the Japanese version, your character would auto-aim to the nearest enemy when drawing his or her weapon. That feature was completely cut from vanilla Resident Evil when it was released in North America. Now, as for the European version of Resident Evil, I'm not really sure if that was a feature that was kept intact or if it was removed, much like the North American version, but it made combat that much more difficult. And nerve-wracking as a result. There are some theories that suggest that the feature was cut in order to make the game that much more difficult to provoke more rentals from places like Blockbuster, which I guess is a pretty good theory because in Japan, video game rentals have essentially been illegal since the early 80s. I think there was a law passed at some point in 82 or 83 in Japan that basically prohibited the rental of video games. Interesting fact. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Yes. Oh, here's a great gag right here. Let's just get it out of the way right now. Yep. Let's get it out of the way. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, that scared the crap out of me when I was growing up. It's too dangerous to go outside. Sorry about that. I had to get that out of the way. Great stuff. It's locked. A carving of armor. Right. Hold that. Come on, Jill. You can do it. It's a map of the first floor. Will you take it? Yep. I always thought this animation was a bit derpy. Not this one. This one looks fine. But, descending the stairs... it's almost robotic, but oh well. Let's move this out of the way. Yeah, them colors. Alright, so there is a zombie here. Oh, so interesting difference between this and the prototype of Biohazard. There was a zombie straight up right there, like immediately to the left of Jill Valentine, who would immediately like get into his "I'm gonna eat you" animation and start, you know, sauntering towards her. Or Chris Redfield, because he's the only playable character at this point, or at that point. Now we have the zombie on the ground right here. By the way, this zombie is still alive, so make sure not to collide into him, or else he'll start munching at my ankle. Now, another interesting difference, right? The drape right here, the curtain is actually pulled to the side. Now, the curtain was actually just hanging down freely. It was slightly closed. So you could see some weird clippage. There's still some weird clippage you can see right here. Like, there's some awkward clipping that you can see at some point. Let's see if it... Nope. It's barely noticeable. Oh, nope. Jill, don't do that. Alright. Alright. Gotta get ready, because there is a dog. You have used the lockpick. Alright. So we're getting to this this first like real jump scare, and to be fair, this was the moment where I became a man. Oh God! Whew. That moment. I mean, I you know, for the longest time, there were games that felt like they had reactive worlds that changed around you, but that was like the first moment where I'm like, wow, this is kind of the next level, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's silly to think now, but I still, you know, I thought that back then, and I still think that now, that this game definitely... not just in terms of bringing horror to video games, but in terms of making a world that reacted around the player. This game definitely nailed it on the head. Hit that nail on the head. So, okay, here's actually the best way to see the graphics of Resident Evil, at least for the Sega Saturn, at work. So you see right here, like, there's some serious Z ordering issues right here. Right? Her arm's right where it should be. Turn a little bit, to her left, and now her arm appears like it's inside of her. And that's just an issue with, 5th generation 3D. This is a problem that Resident Evil 2 on the N64 or any other N64 did not have, because the 3D, I will say, on the N64 is actually relatively tight. Aside from the terrible textures and the forced anti-aliasing, the 3D of the N64 is pretty rock solid, in a way that the other systems could not stack up to. However, that forced anti-aliasing and the blurred textures was just... It was a flaw. I thought that back then. I still think it now. There are advantageous things about the Sega Saturn that it does well that the other systems don't. And adversely, there are things that the Sega Saturn doesn't, doesn't do well, that the other systems can do. The Sega Saturn is not as bad with issues with perspective correct texturing is the term, and some of the games, draw distance wise, some games are better, some games are worse. It really does depend on the hardware as well as the developer. Of course, that applies to any situation, but I always thought that some of the Sega Saturn games scaled better than PlayStation versions and N64 versions for various reasons. And like I said, it's hard to pin that on something in particular. But as you can see, her character model is a little more angular than the PlayStation equivalent, and that's because everything had to be redrawn with quadrilaterals as opposed to triangles. So let's pick up this herb. And let's switch to my gun. Nope, wrong button. It's locked. A carving of armor. Ah, they finally got the mirror stuff working correctly. Now, if you guys remember with my playthrough of the Biohazard prototype, they had two rooms with mirrors. There was this room and the room that I was trying to get in previously, like in the main hall, where it needed the special armor key. And if you remember correctly, the mirror in that room did not work. It showed no reflection whatsoever. Nothing useful. I don't know about you, Jill, but when nature calls, there is nothing more useful than a fully functioning toilet. This room always creeped me out. From what I remember, there are never really any enemies to be seen in this hallway, but the fact that there's no music and the fact that it's winding, it makes you think that there's something around the corner. Alright, here's the dreaded room with the crushing ceiling. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Barry's supposed to save Jill Valentine when the ceiling comes down. A tapestry. Nothing unusual. An urn with a beautiful picture on it. Nothing unusual. Ooh, there is a shotgun. Alright, cannot be investigated. Boom. Yes, I will take that. Alright, so that's a switch that activates the crushing ceiling. God, the load times are so bad. Oh, snap. Cutscene should kick in.
Hey, what's going on?
Jill?
He's just like
What happened?
rapping at the door, just
Barry, help me, please. The door won't open. Quick!
Stay away from the door, Jill. I'm gonna kick this door down.
Hurry! This way!
Oh gosh, it's an open door, Jill. Come on, you can do it. Famous line.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life. But Barry, didn't you say you're going back to the dining room to do some research? Why on earth are you here?
I just had something I wanted to check. Now, let's get back to searching for the lost captain and Chris, shall we?
Something's not right.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this? Alright, so now I have a shotgun. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stick with my pistol. I like to use the pistol for the zombies and use the shotgun for the hunter alphas. It's tough though because you have to get like right up close. The way damage is done in this game is the closer you are, the more you do slightly more damage if you're closer to the enemy. And then if you aim upwards while a zombie is close by, you'll actually shoot their heads off. But it's hard to time out. It can be, at least. Oh. Yep. Alright. Change back to my knife. That's how it's done, son. Oh. Okay, knife. Oh. Okay. Die! Bastard. Look at her. Nothing but sass. That's not what I wanted, but okay. It's locked. A carving of a helmet. just yet. Ah, man, criminy. Now, if I remember correctly, this is the gallery? Yes. Quoth the raven, nevermore. No. A bald-looking old man. No. Sorry, folks, I'm just trying to get a feel for this puzzle. It's been a long time. Okay, so I knew there was another step below infant. The title is Give Me Peaceful Sleep. Yeah, I gotcha. Newborn baby will be first. And lively boy will be next, right? Hold that. Oh my gosh. Get around the corner. Nope. Oh, hey, hold that. Okay, so that's not the only other one. So it would be a middle-aged man. Have a bald-looking old man. Alright, I can't carry any more items. Alright, so that'll have to stay there. Now, if you guys remember the prototype playthrough, this is the music that incessantly plays throughout. I'm not getting back in there. Let's see, can this picture be investigated? Nope. Alright. And once again, I cannot get in here. Alright, time to get ready. Ready to shoot. Got these zombie dogs to contend with. Right? Right, yep. What's up? What? Okay. Yep, you two be dead. Is that one clip or two? Nice. What is happening? Okay. Was that a red herring? Interesting. Okay. Well, we're coming up on an hour here, folks. So I might have to save and resume the next episode in just a bittle. This is a great angle. Very, very good angle. If you guys remember with my prototype playthrough, I know I keep on saying that, but if you remember the prototype that I played through, you'll know that some of the camera angles in that prototype were not that good. So they definitely brought their A game with the final version, with more ominous, striking, and imposing camera angles. They really brought it all together in the end. That music is so ominous and scary. You know what? I'm actually going to save and take a break, and hopefully you guys will be doing the same and join me for the second episode of my playthrough of Resident Evil 1. So I'm in it. I'm in it to win it right now, so there's no going back. Or as Barrett from Final Fantasy VII would say, there's no getting off of this train we're on. I just can't get down those stairs. Ugh, decrepit. Sure. you can save your progress with this. Will you use the ink ribbon? Yeah, sure. Oh, this is interesting. So, if you guys aren't aware, the Sega Saturn has some kilobytes. I know, right? Kilobytes. Remember those? Has some kilobytes of NVRAM. I believe it's NVRAM, non-volatile random access memory. And NVRAM allows you to save your progress or any other data on the Sega Saturn's main board. But the disadvantage is that it runs off the system battery to keep it alive, to keep the data in there. And the battery in my Sega Saturn has long since died. So basically, if I'm going to play through this game and record my progress, the only thing I can do is leave my Sega Saturn on. Alright, there's that. So, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of my Let's Play of Resident Evil 1 for the Sega Saturn. I'm in it. I'm actually really excited about playing through the rest of this game and kind of just re-exploring it. Like I said, it's been years, and some of that's coming back, and it's coming back in a good way. I think it's kind of cool to get back into a game that you haven't played in years and not watch any YouTube videos on it or any other sorts of visual aids or video references on it, or looking up a walkthrough. I feel like that stuff can be kind of passé. I also don't feel that it's really necessary to have a walkthrough for this game. Sure, will you figure it out much quicker and be able to beat the game a lot faster with more ammunition to spare? Sure, but the mystery and kind of figuring out these puzzles and finding these different caches of ammunition and other supplies, that's part of the wow factor of this game. So, on top of the presentation values and such. So, thank you guys once again for watching. Stay tuned to Gaming Instincts for more episodes on this. After this, I'm going to be playing through Resident Evil 1.5 and comparing that to the final version of Biohazard 2, or Resident Evil 2 as we know it. And from there, I'm pretty dead set on playing Code Veronica, even though that's not a numbered Resident Evil title. It was originally supposed to be Resident Evil 3, so because of that logic, I will be playing through that game. So be sure to stay tuned for the next episode of my playthrough, and be sure to check out Leo's stuff. He does some fantastic stuff. Unlike me, Leo's he's absolutely freaking hilarious. I highly recommend checking out his stuff. It gets a chuckle out of me time and time again, so be sure to check that stuff out, and be sure to check out the main website, gaminginstincts.com, for other news stories and video features like this in the wonderful world of video games. So, Jon Rivera from Gaming Instincts signing off. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you next time.